What if the reason your life hasn't changed yet has nothing to do with talent, luck, or opportunity, but with something so small you've been overlooking it every day? Be honest for a moment. You've tried before. You promised yourself this time would be different. New plans, new energy, new hope. And yet, here you are again, still thinking about the life you want instead of living it, that quiet frustration you feel late at night. That's not weakness. That heaviness in your chest when you see others moving forward, that's not jealousy. It's awareness. You know you're capable of more. You can feel it, and that feeling doesn't go away. Most people spend their lives trying to silence it. They distract themselves, they blame circumstances, they tell themselves someday. But someday is just a way to feel safe while staying stuck. The truth is uncomfortable. Change doesn't come from dramatic moments. It doesn't come from massive breakthroughs. It comes from what you do when nothing exciting is happening. That's where most people lose. Not because they can't win, but because they underestimate the power of the smallest decisions. A single skipped action, a single excuse repeated, a single promise quietly broken. Those moments seem harmless. They feel invisible, but they are not neutral. They are shaping your direction. Every day, your life is drifting, not suddenly, gradually, and the direction of that drift is determined by tiny disciplines you either keep or avoid. Here's the part few people tell you. Your future isn't built by big choices. It's built by patterns. What you repeat becomes who you are. What you avoid becomes who you stay. That's why willpower keeps failing you. You were never meant to rely on force. You were meant to rely on structure. Small actions done consistently do something powerful to the mind. They restore trust with yourself. They rebuild confidence quietly. They create momentum that doesn't need motivation to survive. This is where the way out begins, not through pressure, not through guilt, but through alignment. When your daily actions match the person you want to become, resistance fades. Progress stops feeling heavy, and effort starts to feel natural. Most people never experience this. They quit too early. They aim too big. They confuse intensity with progress. But those who understand this rule live differently. They don't wait to feel ready. They don't negotiate with excuses. They don't chase results. They commit to small disciplines so simple they're impossible to fail, yet powerful enough to reshape their destiny over time. This is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters consistently. You don't need a new personality. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need permission. You need one small discipline that you protect daily. One action that proves to yourself that you are in control. Because the moment you stop betraying yourself in small ways, something shifts. Confidence stops being something you chase. It becomes something you stand on. And from that foundation, everything changes. If you've ever felt like you're meant for more, but trapped by your own patterns, this is the turning point you've been missing. Not a dramatic leap, a quiet decision, one that, repeated daily, rewrites your future in ways you can't yet see, but will one day look back on as inevitable. That quiet decision you felt forming just now matters more than you realize, because once awareness appears, there is no going back. You can't unknow what you know. You can't unfeel what you felt. From this point forward, every small choice carries weight. Every skipped action speaks. Every excuse leaves a mark. This is where the stakes rise. Most people think failure comes from doing the wrong things. It doesn't. It comes from doing nothing long enough for life to decide for you. Indecision is a decision. Comfort is a direction, and time is unforgiving. Every day you delay, the version of you that could exist fades slightly, not dramatically, quietly. That's why this moment feels heavy. Your instincts know what's at risk. The future doesn't arrive all at once. It shows up disguised as today's habits. What you repeat now becomes your default later, and defaults are hard to escape. This is why small disciplines are dangerous to ignore. They don't just shape outcomes, they shape standards. Once standards drop, everything follows: effort, focus, belief. And once belief erodes, excuses start to sound. D, reasonable. You've felt this before. That slow internal negotiation, that voice that says tomorrow is safer than today, but tomorrow never carries the same power as now. Now is alive. Tomorrow is theoretical. The people who change their lives don't wait for clarity. They move while things are still unclear. They understand something most never grasp. Discipline is not restriction, it's self respect in action. Every small act of follow through sends a signal to your mind: you can trust yourself. You do what you say. That signal compounds. Confidence grows not from winning big, but from not quitting small. Momentum builds not from motivation, but from proof. Proof that you are becoming someone new. And once that identity begins to form, stopping feels harder than continuing. This is the point where many turn away, because this truth removes excuses. It removes blame. It hands responsibility back to you. That can feel overwhelming, but it's also freeing. If small actions built the life you're living now, then small actions can rebuild it. You are not behind because you lack ability. You are behind because you haven't been consistent. That can change today, not with a grand declaration, not with pressure, with a decision so small it feels almost insulting. Something you can do even on bad days. Something you can do when motivation disappears. That's where power lives. The moment you choose a discipline that doesn't depend on mood, you reclaim control. You stop being reactive. Why? Oh, become deliberate. This is how ordinary people create extraordinary outcomes. Quietly, relentlessly. They don't announce it. They don't rush it. They just keep showing up when it would be easier not to. And over time, something irreversible happens. Their environment changes, their standards rise, their confidence stabilizes. Opportunities appear not because the world changed, but because they did. This is why the urgency matters. Because every day without discipline strengthens the old identity, and every day with discipline weakens it. There is no neutral ground. Right now, momentum is either building or decaying. Whether you feel it or not, you don't need to be fearless. You don't need to be inspired. You just need to be consistent once, then again, then again. Because destiny doesn't respond to intention, it responds to repetition. And the life you want is closer than you think. Not on the other side of a breakthrough, but on the other side of a habit you've been avoiding. That habit you've been avoiding isn't small. It only looks small from the outside. In reality, it's a gate, and everything you want is on the other side of it. This is where the pressure sharpens, because now it's clear. Nothing is missing, nothing is hidden. The only thing standing between you and change is repetition. Most people resist this truth because it removes the fantasy of a sudden transformation, the fantasy of being saved by a moment. But real power doesn't arrive in moments. It's earned in patterns. Every day you wake up, your brain looks for proof, proof of who you are, proof of what to expect from you. When it finds inconsistency, it lowers the standard. When it finds discipline, it raises it. This is happening whether you notice it or not. That's why urgency matters now. Because habits don't wait. They don't pause. They grow stronger every time they're repeated or every time they're avoided. You're either reinforcing the old story or writing a new one. And here's the part that changes everything. The hardest discipline is always at the beginning. Not because it's difficult, but because it hasn't become automatic yet. At first, it feels unnatural, uncomfortable, even pointless. That's the test. Most people quit there. They mistake discomfort for failure, but discomfort is the signal that change has started. The moment something feels awkward is the moment you're no longer on autopilot. And autopilot is where dreams go to die. You don't need to feel strong. You need to stay long enough for strength to show up. Consistency rewires the brain. It creates predictability, and predictability creates safety. Once your mind feels safe with a new behavior, resistance drops. That's when discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like identity. This is where lives quietly turn around, not when motivation spikes, but when standards lock in. A locked-in standard doesn't ask how you feel. It doesn't negotiate. It just executes. That's the difference between people who drift and people who decide. And deciding doesn't mean doing everything. It means doing one thing no matter what. One action that becomes sacred, protected, non-negotiable. When you honor it, even on bad days, something deeper changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries. You start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. That shift is dangerous in the best way because once you trust yourself, your tolerance for excuses collapses. You stop accepting less from yourself, from life. The world responds to that energy, not because it's magical, but because you move differently, you speak differently, you act earlier, you hesitate less. Opportunities don't suddenly appear, you simply stop missing them. This is why waiting costs more than effort ever will. Waiting reinforces doubt. Waiting strengthens fear. Action weakens both. Every small discipline you complete is a quiet rebellion against the life you don't want. Every repetition is a vote for the future you're building. That future isn't distant. It's forming right now. The person you will be in a year is listening to what you do today, not what you promise. And deep down, you already know which habit matters most. The one you keep justifying, the one you keep postponing, that's the one with the power, not because it's dramatic, but because it's honest. This is the moment where clarity meets courage, where intention meets action. You don't need to change your whole life. You need to change one pattern and refuse to let it go. Do that, and momentum will handle the rest because destiny doesn't care about how badly you want it. It responds to what you do consistently. And the moment you commit to small discipline without conditions, you stop chasing a better future. You begin building it. Momentum is fragile at first, but once it exists, it demands respect. It grows when you honor it. It dies when you ignore it. Right now, momentum is listening. It's watching what you do next. Not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, now. This is where lives split. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. Most people break here, not because they can continue, but because consistency exposes them. It forces honesty. No more pretending. No more waiting for permission. When you repeat a small discipline long enough, something uncomfortable happens. Your excuses stop working. They sound weak, transparent. And once you see through them, you can't hide behind them anymore. That's why discipline feels heavy at first. It threatens the old identity, the version of you built on delay, on half effort, on someday. That version will fight to survive. It will whisper. It will bargain. It will promise change later. This is the real battle, not against circumstances, against the voice that wants comfort over growth. If you win here, everything changes. Because once discipline becomes identity, effort disappears. You stop forcing yourself. You start moving naturally. Your actions align with who you believe you are. And belief is powerful. Belief shapes decisions. Decisions shape habits. Habits shape destiny. This is not philosophy. It's observable. It's repeatable. It's unavoidable. The people who build extraordinary lives are not extraordinary people. They simply refuse to break promises to themselves. They choose discomfort now over regret later. They choose discipline over drama. And over time, they separate themselves from the crowd, not by talent, by standards. Standards decide what you tolerate, what you repeat, what you become. Once your standards rise, your environment must follow. Your circle shifts. Your opportunities expand. Your confidence stabilizes. This is how momentum turns into inevitability. But it only happens if you protect the discipline when no one is watching, when it feels boring, when it feels slow, when it feels pointless. Those moments matter more than the easy days because they decide who's in control. Every time you show up anyway, you reinforce the future. Every time you skip, you delay it. Time does not judge intentions. It records actions and it compounds them. You don't need more information. You don't need another plan. You need execution, daily, imperfect, relentless. This is the line most never cross because crossing it removes excuses forever. Once you prove to yourself that you can be consistent, you can't go back, you've seen what's possible, and that knowledge becomes pressure, good pressure, the kind that pulls you forward. Right now, that pressure is building. You feel it, ignore it, and it fades into regret. Honor it, and it turns into power. This is where discipline stops being a tool and becomes a promise that you will no longer live below your potential, a promise that you will act even when it's uncomfortable, because comfort costs more than effort ever will. Small disciplines don't ask for belief, they create it, and once belief is real, limits collapse. This is how destinies are rewritten. Not all at once, but daily, stay consistent long enough, and the life you once hoped for becomes the life you expect. And what you expect, you create. You are closer than you think, not because time has passed, but because awareness has arrived. Now the responsibility is yours, and so is the power. Use it, protect the discipline, repeat it without negotiation, and let the future respond. That power you feel right now is real, but it's impatient. It doesn't wait for perfect timing. It responds to decisive action. This is where the gap closes between knowing and doing, between intention and execution. Most people live their entire lives inside that gap. They understand what to do. They just never become the person who does it. That's the cost of hesitation. Because discipline doesn't grow by thinking about it. It grows by use, like a muscle. Ignored, it weakens. Worked daily, it transforms everything it touches. Right now, the choice is simple but brutal. You either act while this fire is burning, or you let it cool into another memory. Memories don't change lives, patterns do, and patterns are formed under pressure. When motivation fades, when excitement disappears, when no one is watching, that's when discipline proves itself. This is where the stakes peak. Because every delay trains your mind to doubt you. Every follow-through trains it to trust you. Trust with yourself is everything. Without it, goals collapse. With it, obstacles shrink. Once you trust yourself, fear loses its grip, not because fear disappears, but because it no longer controls your behavior. You move anyway. That's when momentum becomes unstoppable, not loud, not flashy, unbreakable. You stop asking if you can. You start assuming you will. That shift is subtle, but it rewires how you approach life. You no longer wait to feel ready. You create readiness through action, and the world responds differently to people who move with certainty. Doors open faster. Respect follows consistency. Not because you demand it, because your actions prove it. This is why small disciplines carry massive weight. They don't just change what you do, they change how you're perceived by others, by yourself, and self-perception drives behavior. When you see yourself as disciplined, you protect that identity. You make choices that reinforce it. You avoid choices that threaten it. That's how progress accelerates, but understand this clearly. There is no finish line where discipline becomes optional. The moment you relax standards, decay begins, slowly, quietly. That's why this commitment must be internal, not driven by praise, not fueled by fear. It must come from a decision you refuse to renegotiate. You don't rise by chance, you rise by design, and design requires repetition. Right now, your life is speaking, not through words, through results. Those results are honest, they reflect what you've been repeating. If you want different results, repetition must change. That's not punishment, that's power. Because it means the future is responsive to you. It means effort still matters. It means destiny is not fixed. It's shaped daily. This is the moment where belief becomes action, where clarity becomes commitment. You don't need to do everything. You need to do one thing without compromise, and then protect it like your future depends on it. Because it does. Every disciplined action narrows the gap between who you are and who you're becoming. Every excuse widens it. There is no middle ground. This is not about pressure. It's about pride. the quiet pride of keeping a promise no one else knows about, the satisfaction of showing up when quitting would be easier. That pride compounds into confidence, into momentum, into destiny. This is how ordinary days become extraordinary lives, not through luck, not through shortcuts, through small disciplines executed relentlessly. Right now, you are standing at the edge of a pattern. Step forward, and momentum carries you. Step back, and comfort claims you. One leads to growth, the other to regret. The choice is not dramatic, but it is permanent. Act now, stay consistent, and let discipline do what motivation never could. That choice you just made echoes further than you think. Because once discipline is chosen, life stops being random. Randomness fades when intention takes over, and intention sharpens everything. Your days stop slipping through your hands, your focus tightens, your energy has direction. This is when people around you start to feel the shift. They may not understand it, they may not name it, but they notice consistency, and consistency commands respect. You no longer explain yourself. You let your actions speak. That silence is powerful because discipline doesn't announce itself, it reveals itself over time. This is where impatience tries to sabotage you. It whispers that progress should be faster, that results should be louder. Ignore that voice. The most dangerous changes are the quiet ones, the kind that build underneath the surface. Roots grow in darkness, and the deeper they go, the harder they are to uproot. This is what you're building now. Every disciplined day strengthens the foundation. Every repeated action reinforces stability. You are becoming harder to shake. This matters because life will test you. Stress will come. Doubt will return. And when it does, discipline will be the thing that holds you upright. Motivation won't save you then. Inspiration won't carry you through. Only habits will. This is why urgency still matters, not panic. Urgency with control, the kind that understands time is moving regardless, the kind that refuses to waste another day drifting. You are not racing others. You are racing decay. Decay happens automatically. Growth does not. Growth must be chosen daily. That choice doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be final. Once discipline becomes non-negotiable, life simplifies, decisions become easier, distractions lose power. You stop arguing with yourself. That internal peace is rare, and it's priceless, because most exhaustion doesn't come from effort. It comes from inconsistency, from starting and stopping, from hoping and hesitating. Discipline removes that friction. It turns effort into rhythm, and rhythm into progress. Progress builds belief. Belief fuels courage. Courage changes trajectories. This is the chain reaction you've been missing. It never starts with confidence. It starts with commitment. Commitment to something small enough to sustain, but meaningful enough to matter. That balance is where power lives. Once you find it, protect it fiercely. Not from others, from excuses. Excuses are subtle. They sound logical. They feel justified, but they all lead to the same place, stagnation. You already know where that path ends. This new path feels different, not because it's easier, but because it's honest. It doesn't promise shortcuts. It promises results through repetition. That's why it works. Over time, discipline reshape as your self-image. You stop seeing yourself as someone who hopes. You become someone who expects. Expectation changes posture. It changes tone. It changes presence. People feel it. Opportunities respond to it. Not because the world owes you anything, but because disciplined people are reliable, and reliability attracts responsibility. Responsibility unlocks growth. This is how small disciplines create big destinies, not through magic, through momentum. Momentum that compounds quietly, day after day. You don't need validation for this. You don't need applause. The reward is internal. The reward is control. Control over your actions, control over your direction, and direction determines destiny. This is not about perfection. It's about persistence. Miss a day, return the next. Fall short, stand back up. Discipline is not fragile. It's forgiving to those who stay committed, stay long enough, and the results stop surprising you. They become expected. That's when you realize the truth. You were never lacking motivation. You were lacking structure. Now you have it. And if you guard it daily, if you repeat it relentlessly, if you refuse to negotiate with comfort, the life you once imagined slowly becomes the life you live, not someday, but inevitably. That inevitability you're sensing is not imagination. It's alignment. When discipline and direction lock together, life accelerates, not chaotically, precisely. You stop scattering energy. You stop chasing distractions dressed as opportunities. Your effort finally has weight. This is where patience becomes power because you understand something most never do. Speed comes after structure. Until then, rushing only creates noise. Now the work is quieter, deeper, more serious. And serious work creates serious outcomes. This is the stage where many lose interest because nothing flashy is happening yet. No applause, no instant proof. But this is where the real separation happens. While others chase excitement, you're building stability. While others seek motivation, you're installing systems. And systems don't care how you feel. They just execute. That's freedom. Freedom from mood, freedom from doubt, freedom from inconsistency. You're no longer dependent on external energy. You generate your own. This changes how you carry yourself. You walk differently. You speak with less urgency and more certainty. That certainty is felt not because you say anything, because you don't need to. Your actions are predictable now, and predictability is rare. People trust what they can rely on. You become someone others depend on, and dependence creates influence. Influence creates impact. Impact creates legacy. This is how the small becomes massive. Not overnight, but undeniably. The days you once struggled to start now feel incomplete without action. Not because of pressure, because discipline has rewired desire. You no longer ask if you should show up. You ask what comes next. That shift is everything. It means the intern. Our battle is ending. The friction is gone. The resistance has weakened. And what remains is momentum with direction. This is when life begins to feel intentional, as if each day is connected to the next, as if your actions finally make sense together, because they do. You're no longer living in fragments. You're building a sequence, and sequences compound. One disciplined day reinforces the next. One clear decision sharpens the following one. Soon the path ahead feels obvious, not easy, but clear. Clarity removes anxiety. Anxiety fades when action is consistent. That's why calm confidence replaces urgency. You're not desperate anymore. You're deliberate. Deliberate people don't rush. They persist. Persistence outlasts talent. It outlasts luck. And over time, it reshapes outcomes so completely that the past feels unrecognizable. You will look back one day and realize this was the moment things stopped being accidental, not because something dramatic happened, but because something internal settled. You stopped negotiating with the future. You stopped waiting to be rescued by circumstances. You took ownership of repetition. That ownership is rare, and rarity creates value. You are no longer reacting to life. You are designing it. Design requires commitment. Commitment requires discipline, and discipline rewards those who stay. There will still be hard days. That doesn't change. What changes is your response. You no longer collapse. You adapt. You no longer quit. You adjust. Yo, you no longer spiral. You stabilize. That stability becomes your advantage. While others burn out, you endure. While others start over, you continue. Continuity wins. This is how small disciplines create big destinies. Not through force, through faith and repetition. Faith proven daily. You don't need to feel powerful to be powerful. You just need to keep showing up. That's the rule. Follow it long enough, and life has no choice but to respond because discipline doesn't argue. It compounds. And what compounds eventually dominates? You are not early. You are not late. You are exactly where discipline begins to matter. Stay here. Keep repeating. Let time do what it always does with consistency. Turn effort into identity, identity into momentum, momentum into destiny. That destiny you're moving toward is already responding. Not emotionally, mechanically, life responds to patterns, and patterns are undeniable. The moment consistency enters the equation, chaos loses influence, random outcomes shrink, predictable progress takes over. This is when discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like gravity. It pulls you forward whether you feel like it or not. You don't fight gravity, you use it. This is the advantage you're building. Others rely on bursts of energy. You rely on systems. Energy fades, systems endure. That endurance becomes your edge. Because when pressure increases, fragile strategies collapse, but disciplined structures hold. You begin to notice something, Sue. Lay. You recover faster. You hesitate less. You adapt without drama. That calm under pressure is not personality, it's training. Training through repetition. This is why small disciplines are unstoppable. They don't demand attention. They don't need validation. They work quietly, and quietly is how real power grows. You are no longer chasing proof. You are collecting it. Every completed action is evidence. Evidence that you are capable of follow through. Evidence that you can be trusted with bigger responsibilities. Trust compounds, first with yourself, then with others. And when trust is present, opportunities expand naturally. Not because you asked for them, because you are ready for them. Readiness changes everything. Unprepared people panic when opportunity arrives. Prepared people step forward calmly. That calm is earned. It comes from knowing you've done the work when it was boring, when it was lonely, when it felt insignificant. Those days matter most. They form the backbone of your future. This is why quitting is no longer an option. Not because it's forbidden, because it no longer aligns with who you are becoming. Identity has shifted. You are not someone who starts and stops. You are someone who continues. That distinction is rare. And rarity creates leverage, leverage over time, leverage over outcomes, leverage over your own potential. This is where belief turns unshakable, not loud belief, grounded belief, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself. You don't need to convince anyone anymore. Your trajectory does that for you. Day by day, you're narrowing the gap between vision and reality, not through force, through faith in repetition, faith earned, not imagined. You are no longer waiting for confidence to arrive. You're building it through evidence. Evidence removes doubt, and without doubt, action flows. This is the point where momentum becomes self-sustaining, where effort feels lighter, where focus sharpens naturally, not because the work changed, because you did. You have trained yourself to move forward without friction. This is the real reward of discipline. Not results alone, but reliability. You can rely on yourself now. That reliability becomes peace because uncertainty fades when behavior is consistent. You know what you will do, and that certainty is calming. Calm people make better decisions. Better decisions create better lives. This is the chain reaction. It doesn't require perfection. It requires persistence, and persistence is already yours. The future you once imagined is no longer abstract. It's taking shape in your daily actions. Every small discipline is a brick, laid carefully, repeatedly. You are building something durable, something that will outlast moods, outlast circumstances, outlast doubt. This is how destiny becomes solid. Not through wishes, through work repeated long enough to become identity. You are not forcing change anymore. You are allowing it through consistency. That's why it feels different. Yeah, Elmer, stronger. You are no longer asking life for permission. You are meeting it with standards. Standards shape outcomes, and your standards are rising. Stay with this rhythm. Protect it, respect it, because the version of you that keeps showing up daily becomes unstoppable over time. Time always sides with consistency, always. And now, time is on your side.